Knowing where to fish is only a part of a successful day on the water. So if you're looking to find the bite this weekend, our guides will provide you with the proper rigs and baits you'll need to catch them. This is the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Well, Texans, we are back for another week of fishing secrets on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We hope y'all had a fun weekend on the water, but I know I was kind of recovering from ICAST in Orlando, Florida, Rick. I know we saw a lot of cool things, didn't we? I met a lot of cool people.
A lot of new products that are coming, man. I feel sorry for the fish sometimes.
I know,
Bree.
it's just not fair anymore.
No.
Just not fair. Well, I know Dave was in CCA Workbench heaven this past week, weren't you, Dave?
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
It's fair. It's all fair.
I think it's all fair in fishing and love and war and everything.
What was the coolest thing you saw at ICAST?
I got some right here. We're going to talk
We're
about
gonna talk about it later?
Yeah, talk about it later.
Sure.
We're going to be giving away all the good stuff right off the bat now.
Okay. I gotcha.
That's my boy, Secret Dave.
Secret Dave. Well, we could talk about new fishing products on the market all day, so let's cut right to it with our first captain, Matt Reed, in the Yeti Lower Fresh region. Speaking of Yeti, they were coming out with such awesome things over there, so keep an eye out for them. Matt, how are the reports looking for this weekend?
Oh, it's looking good, Bree. I mean, South Texas is fishing really hot right now, and heavy on the word hot because it's really warm down here, but that doesn't slow the bass down. So we're going to start off with a largemouth bass report, and let's kick it off at Lake Amistad. The bass have been biting really well there early in the mornings. You can catch a ton of fish out over the hydrilla on a whopper plopper. I always throw that on braid so I can get a good hookup because they'll dive down in the thick hydrilla. The other early morning bite is in the matted pondweed on either a hollow belly frog, or the rivet style frog. And there's a lot of really big fish staying shallow early in the mornings because there's big gizzard shad up there. And that's a ton of fun to get those explosive bites on the frogs. Later in the day, the fish are moving out to the outside edge of the hydrilla, and that can be as deep as 22 feet right now at Amistad. It's just growing really well. On that outside edge, you can catch the big 10-inch worm. Plum apple's my favorite color. Catch you some good ones out there. If they want to be picky with you, they may bury up in that grass in the high sun. Get you a 1 ounce weight and braided line and a big hook and punch you a big worm or a beaver style bait through the thick hydrilla, and you can pick some up that way. We're going to roll on south, and we're going to go down to Lake Falcon. Fishing the Falcon has been really good lately. Water is falling hard, so we need the rain. Heck, we need a tropical storm, but fishing's been great. My best bite lately has been on a crankbait on the Profound Outdoors Azuma Z-Boss 20 crankbait. The chartreuse patterns are the best, the blue moon color or anything with some chartreuse on it. I'm throwing that on rock ledges that are 8 to 18 feet deep. I seem to be getting my biggest ones on the crankbait, but man, you can catch a whole lot of fish right now throwing a Carolina rig in the same type areas. Throwing a Zoom Magnum trick worm in plum apple color, getting a ton of bites doing that. You'll go through a lot of numbers that way, and you'll get you an occasional big one mixed in. Other thing, you can throw a football jig. Sour pumpkin is my favorite color. That's kind of a green pumpkin purple. That's another way to fish those bottom bouncing baits there at Falcon. So it's been really good down. Give me a shout, and we'll go try to catch you one. We're going to roll back up around the Austin area. We're going to go to Lake Bastrop. As Lake Bastrop's been really good in the mornings there around the discharge, catching a lot of fish around that moving water early in the mornings. Later in the late mornings and afternoon, the schoolies are showing up out on the main lake. That's a ton of fun to chase those school fish. What they're biting best right now are clear type topwaters, baby torpedoes or walking baits, anything like that. Throw it through that school. You want to keep it moving really fast. Act like the shad's trying to get away from them, and a lot of times you'll trigger one to really eat it well that way. Another thing you can throw at them is throw an Alabama rig. Load it up with white grubs or white little swim baits, and sometimes you can catch more than one at once. The other bite there at Bastrop right now is a frog bite on top of the matted hydrilla. That can be a ton of fun, as always. So that's what I've got for the bass this week.
All right, tell us about the photo there, Rick.
That's
Matt.
Photo was a customer. I'll forgive you this time, Rick. That photo was a customer of mine, JC, with a 8-pounder. He caught a falcon cranking the other day. That's just an big old falcon special. There's a lot of them around.
That's a pretty special fish, that's for sure. That's a good one. All right, tell us about the white bass there, Chief.
The white bass at Falcon, as long as I've been fishing Falcon, there were no white bass. Now, back in the old days, there were. But it was about 2 years ago when I saw the first one. And they have exploded since then. Right now, they're schooling all over from mid-lake all the way to the dam. Any of the shallow rock ledges, windy points, man, they're just everywhere. And you can see them surface schooling. You'd be running down the lake. It's just kind of like saltwater fishing here. Look for the seagulls. Look for the birds. They'll be working, surfacing schools of those white bass. Get you a shad color crankbait or a silver slab spoon, and you can fill you a 25-fish limit in a hurry. And if there's 4 of you in the boat, you're going to fill you 100 fish in a hurry. So, I mean, it's just to catch them at will right now, and that's a lot of fun, especially for kids and people that don't fish a lot.
So, Matt, I got a quick question for you. One of the things I'm wondering, why do you think those stripers have rebounded so rapidly? What made the difference?
I don't know why the white bass got back in there. They obviously came down the river out of Lake Amistad, but the food supply on Falcon is phenomenal. So once you get an established population of anything, they're going to do really well. More shad in that lake than any lake I've ever been associated with.
All right, well, thanks for keeping us straight on that. Sorry that I called you Rick. That will never happen again.
He really likes his name.
Until the day I die.
Don't ever say never, because anything happens again. I may forget your name during this call.
All right, man. Well, thank you for starting us off tonight. You did a great job. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower fresh hot spots. Lake Amistad, bass are biting well on top of water around the shallow pond weeds or plastics on the outside of the hydrilla edges. And then Lake Falcon, white bass are schooling over the rock ledges on the lower part of the lake. Throw a shad-colored crankbait and load the boat in a hurry, Bree.
Rick, we already have another Rick on the show. You got to do another Rick? Really?
What can I say?
It's Rick overload. I can only handle one. Just one. That's all I need. Okay, Captain Chad Kinney in the Lower Coast region is going to keep you in the know if you plan on fishing this weekend, so listen up.
Tell you what, the weather's been phenomenal. It's been really calm, abnormally calm almost as far as winds go, so the fishing's been great. And it looks like the forecast is still going to hold pretty good like that. So inshore here is the trout fishing. It's been really good up in the land cut north of Fort Mansfield. Worked the guts and grass beds along the drop-offs there. And redfish have also been showing up now pretty good on the east side of the flats, from there all the way up to the land cut. And so starting out with the trout fishing good up in the land cut there at Fort Mansfield. It's all the way from there all the way up to 9 Mile Holes. Heard good reports all the way through there. So do some soft plastics like a sand eel. Plum chartreuse works great. I really like that color. Also try a bone color early in the morning. If you got access to live shrimp, if it's been kind of spotty out there, but if you got live shrimp, that also works really good right there. Try a pop and cork with about a 24-inch leader, 25-pound fluorocarbon leader. It works great. And use a circle hook on that, a small, like a number 1 or number 2, depending on the size of the shrimp. That's my preference. If you use a treble hook, of course, it works great, but if they start gut hooking there, you're going to have a mortality rate on that. So, single hook seems to work better, in my opinion, there. Work the edges of the grasses and the drop-off, like I said. You get the current flowing down or the edge of the guts that go in there. Just work that shrimp or your sand eels right along that edge early, and it works great. And there's also been some birds that are starting to show up also. So the birds, if you see them work in a big group and they're up high and diving, more than likely it's probably going to be some school trout or some keeper trout mixed in there, or it might be ladyfish. And if you also see a little pod of birds work in a smaller group and a real tight holding on the water near the shoreline, look underneath them, because that's more than likely going to be a pod of redfish moving. So you got to be kind of stealthy. If you got a trolling motor or power pole down on that bank right there and getting within casting distance, you're whack to get a redfish. So speaking about redfish, moving along with them, they started showing up in the flats down here from here all the way up to the land cut. So it's good to see that. try some soft plastic paddle tails, works great. Of course, the go-to is the 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce weedless gold spoon. With the calmer winds or anything else like that, you're not going to be able to drift much at all. So either you got to have a trolling motor, which is pretty difficult to maneuver. We got lots and lots of ground to cover. We're not fishing drop-offs there, so wading and sight casting works the best. So look for mulled up shallow early in the morning. As the day goes by, the bait's going to fall off. It's going to drop down. It's going to go from the sand down to the spotty grass, down into the deeper grass. So follow those along. So like by late morning, try mid-thigh to waist-deep water. I'm talking mid-morning, about 10:30, 11 o'clock. That's about where those fish are going to start moving into. And look for movement with these calm winds. There's been redfish in there. You'll see them darting off, pushing wakes. But also, there's some black drums, some schools of black drum been showing up. If y'all enjoy doing that after you catch your redfish or your trout or whatever you're fishing for, or just enjoy the fight, take a box of dead shrimp with you. And if you have your jig head ready, all you got to do is take your soft plastic off, your sand eel off, and just peel back that shell, pop a little shrimp on there, and when you get in that school, just cast it in the middle, let it sit. Of course, they'll pop it and go, and you got some good fight there and some good stuff. So got a picture of a redfish. Had some guys out this past week, and Corey and Luke, they got a double up on some nice solid redfish there.
Those are a nice couple of great pairs. So tell us about offshore, bud.
Yeah, moving the offshore, and a few Dorado are showing up, along the lower coast here, deep and shallow. So the weed lines have kind of dissipated, actually, guys. There've been a bunch earlier, but I think since the light winds and everything else and the currents haven't been cranking, they're not stacking up so good. So look for any structure you can or debris, pallets, buckets, anything that you can find. It doesn't have to be very big to hold anything there. So like I said, trolling them deep. I've been out deep here the last few days, real deep, 80, 90 miles out. Like I said, it's definitely slowed down. I think it's just due to that didn't have any, ripples on the water and stuff. I've seen some fish out there free jumping. But if that's slow and y'all want to do something different, you can move on in deep water for some federal snapper, of course, on the weekends, and also some deep droppers where some grouper is something added in there. Spend a couple hours doing that on the way home. So moving to the Dorado, like I said, they've been catching them, anywhere from 60 foot on out deep. And like I said, the weed lines haven't been as prolific. I expect them to come back here before the season's over. I'll keep you in touch with that. But look for debris. Like I said, pallets. Had a buddy of mine just caught one off a life preserver, and thank God there wasn't nobody attached to it. It's just blowing off the boat. So we popped one off there. But try cedar plugs or feathers. While trolling, they work great. Also, of course, a go-to is a ballyhoo. A ballyhoo, you can just rig them naked or low shin weight. Or rig them up with an islander, it'd be great. Use some lighter tackle if you can do that stuff, like 25 to 40-pound test. Works good. And if you find the debris, go ahead and get ready for it. When you pass by, just probably pull 2-3 lines right through there. If you hook up on a medium-sized Dorado, go ahead and bring them to the boat, keep them in the water. More than likely, there's going to be a school behind them. Keep a lighter bay rod with you, have some fun, 12, 20-pound test. Put a curly tail on there or a spoon, or anything small enough, and then just, catch the bennies. Kind of like to have some good dinner that night. So we got a picture of Luke here with a Dorado, probably 12-pound Dorado he caught. It's got nice colors to it.
Tell me about the grouper and snapper fishing, Chad.
Yeah, like I said, we're not bill fishing and slowed down, so the snapper fishing, try the deep. The snapper fishing's been on fire up and down the whole lower coast, been up and down the whole coast with the federal waters, but grouper fishing's a little different. Guys, so if you have any access to live bait, some blue runners, hardtails. If you catch a bonita, they work good too. The only thing in the bonita, guys, you got to be careful. They're real bloody, so if you start moving in the sharks, go ahead and move because that's your grouper fishing's over. But use a heavier leader material, about 200 to 400 pound mono with a 14-aught, really heavy VMC hook or something that works great. And use about a 3-pound weight. You'll be in that 400, 600 foot deep range. So use some 200-pound braid line or better. Put it to the bottom. Probably make a three-way swivel rig so you can actually let it float around. But you got to feed that grouper when he hits. Let him run a little bit, stick him, and it's phenomenal too. And also try some heavier flutter jigs or some Stro jigs, about 8 ounce, and just jig those off the bottom, 5 to 15 foot off the bottom. You might get some yellow edge scamps, whatever works out. But there's a nice grouper there. You see a Warsaw picture there. It's about 120-pound Warsaw.
Man, whoa, that is a stud grouper. Hey, great report this week, Chad. Very thorough. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower coast hotspots. Inshore, trout and redfish. The trout fishing has been good in the land cut north of Port Mansfield. Work the guts and the grass beds along the drop-off. Redfish have been good on the east side of the flats from the east cut to the land cut. And then offshore, Dorado, snapper, and grouper. A few Dorados are being caught along off the lower coast. The weed lines have dissipated, so look for structure or debris. Trolling deep has slowed down, so you might want to do some deep dropping in federal waters for snappas and groupas.
Snappa. What's your favorite word?
Snappa.
Hey, just a reminder, guys, the 43rd annual Port Mansfield Fishing Tournament is taking place July 27th through the 29th, with awards being on July 30th. Enter or stop by for live music and dinner. There will be 2 bay tournaments, a kids tournament, and our very own Captain Chad Kinney is the offshore director, so make sure you check that out. All right, Rick, first 2 regions down and 4 more to go. We're headed to the Lower Fresh region next, and then seeing what our teacher Dave has for us at Rigs and Techniques, the CCA Workbench.
Dave?
Hey, Teach,
We're
what's going
gonna
on?
go try to catch some tenacious Texas tarpon.
Whoa,
What?
Tees.
Yes, on the
Come
coon
on.
pop.
The 3 T's.
I love the coon
Nice.
pop.
Can't wait. We'll be back for the
That's such a
tenacious
cool
Texas
lure.
The
tournament.
Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Precision tackle and performance clothing since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. Navionics. We start where the road ends. CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation. And Okuma, inspired fishing. Meet the water's lightest 25 horsepower 4-stroke, the all-new Yamaha F25, the new standard and 25 horsepower portable 4-strokes. At just 126 pounds, it's got the best power-to-weight ratio of any 25 horsepower 4-stroke on the water. With performance that bests the previous Yamaha F25 and features like Yamaha's VTS for precise trolling speeds, batteryless EFI, built-in resting pads, and carry handles, it's the perfect portable power for small boats.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Inside you, there's an outside you. A you that takes the road less traveled than the road less traveled, and finds the comforts of home extremely uncomfortable. This is for that you.
Remember to follow our guides and be up to date on all things fishing in Texas. Make sure to head over to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com. You can catch all of our shows on our YouTube channel as well. Remember to like us on Facebook at Texas Insider Fishing Report and follow us on Instagram at TifferTV. Also, don't forget to send and tag us in your fish-tastic photos and videos. But now it's time for Rigs and Techniques.
Well, we're here at the CCA Workbench like we are every week, and
Yes,
we're talking
sir.
about the rigs and techniques. Now, Dave, you chose to talk about tarpon this week and how the tarpon fishing has had its challenges in Texas over the last few years.
Well,
so why don't we start with that?
Well, you know, I talked to a fella named Mike Williams, who's been the king of tarpon fishing in Galveston, Texas, since it began, really. And what happened is in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, you could catch tarpon just like you could catch them everywhere else in Texas.
Right
You
off
could
the
catch them
beach.
right off the beach and the inlets. And in the early 60s, Texas started damming up a lot of the rivers for, I guess, power. And what happened was those upper Texas rivers, and what happens is they stopped getting a lot of that fresh water, and the tarpon disappeared. And everybody thought, oh, there's just no more tarpon. They've gone. We don't know why. They started blaming, Mexico to the south. They think, oh, they're netting them all and use them for cat food and whatnot. But that wasn't the deal. Mike found out, he would be fishing out there, and he every time he caught a tarpon for like 10 years, he'd put a little X on the map. And then he figured out, oh, these things are all in a line about 2 to 3 miles off the beach and 40 feet of water now. And he started hanging some of them up in the 80s, thinking, hey, look, there's big tarpon out there. And people started getting on him. It was the only way that you could get people to start realizing that they're out there is to hang them every once in a while. So
do they still killing tarpon in Texas?
No.
Okay.
But what they do, there's a big fishery for them there now. And they do it a lot different, than a lot of places. What they'll do is, they'll go out there to that zone, that Tarpon Alley zone, in 30, 40 feet of water, about 2 miles off the beach, and they'll start looking for them. You'd ride up and down the beach, and you see them roll in or getting in a chain or whatever. What happens is these fish are making a big clockwise rotation in the Gulf of Mexico from the Yucatan, and they get up off Galveston in the springtime, in April, and then back again for the other way, coming back the other way.
Back to the Yucatan.
Yep, in September. So there's two good times to fish for them, but June in Galveston is probably the best time to go. And Mike says if you're going to go fishing for tarpon and you want to catch tarpon, that's what you have to do. You have to fish for tarpon. You have to
fish for them.
You have to be like when you're fishing for a blue marlin. You don't catch a lot of tarpon by accident. You don't catch a lot of blue marlins by accident. You have to target them. And what he does, well, a lot of guys troll, and they troll these baits called coon pops.
Okay.
And I used to use them a long time ago in Boca Grande, and they actually outlawed the coon pop,
right?
Which is a circle hook with a jig head wired, a breakaway jig wired to the circle hook, and you can troll this or jig it on the bottom or cast it. Just when you see the fish up on the surface, you just go ahead and make a cast at them, and they'll target the fish with these a lot. And when they're trolling, they'll troll like 4 lines. Real slow, about 2 miles an hour, and they'll throw these out there, and they'll troll them on, like 40-pound line, 40-pound monofilament, 65-pound braid, about 2 knots, and they'll try to get those fish when they're in that 30, 40 feet of water.
Now, do they fish for bait, or do they throw any of the big plugs?
Well, they can also use live baits, and what they'll do is they'll fish a live bait under a cork. They'll get in that zone, see rolling fish, and then they'll put a live bait under a cork, a live mullet, sugar trout, or a croaker. Those are his 3 baits that he prefers. He says, but any little live fish will probably work.
So when they put the live fish into the deal, Dave, do they do like we do a live pinfish? We hook him on a jig head.
Right.
Put the hook out of the top of his mouth.
That's exactly how they do it.
And then we can throw him exactly where we want to. So they do the same thing.
They do the same thing.
They'll put him straight down 30 feet, 40 feet, cast it.
They'll even troll a dead mullet or a dead trout, or with the same deal. They'll put the jig head up to a big heavy jig.
So
and
he
then
trolls correctly.
Yeah, you got to make sure he's, even with these, I made all these coon pops because it's kind of hard to buy them where I live. But I made all these with just a piece of copper wire, a short piece of copper wire, a 12-aught circle hook. You got to watch the numbers on circle hooks because they're all over the place.
Right.
This can be a 12-aught for one one company, and it'd be a 10-aught for another.
Yeah.
So, when you're going to build them, you just get you some copper wire, and you just wire the jig head straight to the shank. If you were going to be casting them, you might want to use some heavier stuff. Just because you're going to be doing it over and over and over again, and you don't want to cast your jig off the circle hook.
Right.
The reason why they use this and why it's so effective is what happens is when this gets hooked, a lot of times if he's shaking his head real good, this jig will fall off, and therefore he doesn't have that weight working on the hook every time he shakes his head to get that thing off there. And that's why those spool techs they do the same thing. They just come away.
So it sounds like to me what we need to do is we need to convince CCA to undo all those dams. That'll be kind of cool. And then we can have our fresh water coming out.
Yeah.
Although we'd probably flood a lot of agriculture ground.
He says they stay away from the inlets, especially he catches most of them in the middle of the island between Galveston and St. Louis Pass, right smack in the middle, as far away from the inlets as possible.
Wow.
Probably because they get a lot of boat traffic, he says.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I sure learned a lot about those tenacious Texas tarpon over there. Great job, Dave. Rick Carter from the Upper Fresh region always has good news for us. So if you're hitting up Lake Forth, Possum Kingdom, or Grapevine, you're in for a treat this weekend. Go for it, Rick.
Hey guys, that's some great insight. I'm like Bree there. I'm just an old freshwater guide for 30 years, but that info Dave was putting out there about those big fish migrating and all, that's why I love this show. There's some awesome info. You just got to listen up.
Exactly. So let's listen up to your report.
Hey, on Lake Grapevine this week, the fish are biting along the north shore, an area called Sneaky Pete's. They're on those rock bluffs close to shoreline. The plum and blue fleck Texas rigs with about an 1/8 ounce elite tungsten weight. Also, the 1.5 Strike King crankbaits are catching them early morning on Grapevine, along with the white buzz baits right at daylight on those rock shelves. Moving on to Lake Fork, the early morning bite is still good here, but I mean early. White flukes, weightless, chatterbaits with the LFT Magic Shad on the back are catching them real early, the first bite. A lot of the anglers are starting to do the night trips now. Big bass will move up on the flooded cover. Usually prime time's about 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. The recent trips, 11-inch black bass assassin worm with about a 1/4 ounce Texas rig, black and red spinner baits with a big Colorado blade. That's a great night bait, and you can move up shallow, 11 to midnight and catch a big fish right now if you want to get into some of that night fishing on Fork.
So Rick, tell me about this photo there, partner.
That photo is old Don Berry. He's an old South Texas fishing legend. Been fishing with me forever, and he's just one of my favorite guys to get in the boat there. He's got his CCA cap on, and he's topped back and ready to go.
All right, before we go on to stripers, I want to actually talk about the Navionics from your region. So guys, we're going to take a look at the Navionics, and this is the old dam area that Rick's talking about. Now understand, by looking at these lines, depending on the height of the water is going to be where you would fish. So technically this is the old dam, the pond. You can see this is the deepest area, but depending on what happens with the water level, you might want to move up or down on these areas, right, Rick? We're going to fish that with a Carolina rig, isn't that what you told me?
Yes, sir. Carolina rig and crankbaits are real good on those old, we call them tanks here in East Texas. Those old tank dams, when the lake first opened, that was the hot spot. You just had to figure out the depth on it, and it still holds true to today. Those old tank dams are great.
Give me some Possum Kingdom.
Hey, Possum Kingdom, the stripers out there are going crazy. They're roaming around on the main lake in big schools right underneath the giant balls of shad. 1 ounce swim baits are catching a lot. Even live bait right now, 30 to 50 feet, has been the best depths out there. If you live close to Possum Kingdom, get out there and hire one of those guides. They'll teach you how to catch those beautiful fish, and it is a blast. Possum is one of the prettiest lakes in Texas.
All right, well, let's talk about some crappie.
Hey, the crappie are still on at Fork, 18 to 25 feet. They're catching limits by noon. That crappie fishing's been off the chain this year. Lake Fork Trophy Baby Shad and the Bonehead Glider crappie baits have been the best in chartreuse and white.
Tell me about the photo here, bud.
Photo is David and Michelle. They went out there with Terry Moon, and they had some boat trouble, and she actually saved their neck on the trip and was able to work them in and caught them a limit the first morning and fixed them up.
All right, well, thanks for the report. You did a great job this week. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Upper Fresh hot spots. Our guide, Rick Carter, says we're going to try Lake Fork. The night bass fishing has been good on 11-inch black bass assassin worms, Texas rig. 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. is prime time. Fish flooded cover in 4 to 12 feet of water. And then Lake Possum Kingdom stripers are starting to group up in the main lake. Big swim baits and live baits are the best choice to drop down. A lot of big catches are coming from the Hell's Gate area.
Okay, we're checking in with the Middle Coast and Upper Coast regions next, so make sure you stay hooked on the Texas Insider
Fishing Report.
There we go.
Yes, ma'am.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, performance through innovation. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. Costa Sunglasses, see what's out there. Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. And King Sailfish Mounts, www.kingsailfish.com.
At Yamaha, reliability is a family tradition. Meet the next generation. 4 new advanced technology-inspired inline 4-cylinder performers. Bred from the reliability and boater satisfaction that is part of Yamaha's DNA. They prove that when power gets lighter, faster, stronger, and smarter, boating gets even better. And more satisfying for boaters like you.
Hey, how do you like your Contender? How do I like my Contender? What's not to like? Dude, I just saw a Contender, and man, I gotta give me one.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left, there's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Welcome back, y'all. I know the wind is always a factor when it comes to the coast, so let's see if fishing will be a breeze this weekend with Captain Bink Grimes in the Middle Coast region, shall we?
Brother.
It hadn't. I'll tell you what, it hadn't been blowing too much, and that spells bad for trout and redfish. Our light north winds means one thing in July, and the surf is right. We've been waiting for a while this summer for green tides to creep along the beach, and that's exactly what it did this week. And there were some large trout in the first gut. Most of us threw top waters like the pink skitter walk. That's been the hot bait here in Texas. Super spooks and she dogs as well, but they really want that pink Rapala skitter walk. Then we switched to 51 mirror lures and then soft tines, and then and went to soft plastic. Live baiters are crushed them real early on live croakers and live shrimp. Boaters got them just as good in the first gut. They worked the first gut early, then later in the day, about 10 or 11 o'clock, tide began to fall, and those fish pulled out on the outer bars, and man, it was really good in about 5 foot of water. When the surf produces, so does the bay, and oftentimes that boat traffic in the bay is light because everybody's in the surf, and that's when you can really get on those mid-bay reefs. Run and Gun Adventures reported releasing about lots of 7 to 8 pound trout this week while wading reefs in East Matagorda Bay. Lee Warmke found trout 30 inches on top waters and soft plastics, and they're releasing all those big fish, so we're trying to take care of these big trout. West Matagorda Bay continues to produce. Guy Ray Sexton said he considers this to be the best bite that he's had in over a month. His clients literally stood in one spot and caught trout for 3 hours while wading. He's working those sand and grass flats closer to Port O'Connor Jetty and Pascaval, and he's throwing croakers, but a lot of my groups have been, throwing skitter walks and sheep ups and super spooks and doing equally well. Port O'Connor anglers are working the mid-bay reefs in San Antonio Bay. Guy Lynn Smith said there's a great top water bite early, and then he's switching to soft plastics, chicken on a chain Bass Assassin, and down south lures. Then in Freeport, Surfside, the jetties have been great when the surf's great. The jetties are great as well, and it's just been really good. There's a picture there. We waded the flats there by Pascaval near Fort O'Connor and caught these limited trout on red and white super spook skitter walk. So just been really, really good. We're going to switch to redfish. Our redfish guides in Matagorda knows things get tough this time of year when water temperature in the upper 80s, tides fall 1 to 2 foot. It makes it tough. So the best pattern lately has been drifting in the middle of East Matagorda Bay. All those redfish on the south shoreline have no choice but to fall off the shorelines when our tides fall 1 to 2 foot. And we're getting behind those slicks and working them with gulps and live shrimp under a popper cork. The jetty has been the best redfish player. Yesterday, I sat right there with 3 other boats and caught redfish till the cows came home after we limited on trout at the jetty. So it was really good. Freeport and Surfside, lots of bull reds are just off the beach in 20 to 30 foot of water. Don't be surprised if you run into a tarpon out there as well. We'll go offshore. Guide Michael Quebeca said the wahoo and dorado are all over weed lines at about 200 foot of water. Wahoo are eating ballyhoo and deep diving Rapala X-Raps in the purple and black colors. Weed lines over the hilltops are holding billfish, and that nighttime swordfish action has been really, really productive about 80 miles out. All the wrecks and rigs are covered in red snapper. Snapper season ended July the 19th for commercial boat captains, but for recreational anglers, it still stays open Friday through Sunday of Labor Day. Out of Freeport, Guide Mike Segal said that the kingfish are excellent around rig and structure while he's trolling sardines. Red snapper everywhere there. They're everywhere in Freeport. They're everywhere in Matagorda. They're everywhere along the coast. And there's some bonus red snapper, bonus mangrove snapper out there. There's a picture there of big water captains with red snapper there. That's an 18-pounder. There's plenty of 20-pounders out there too. So I just can't say enough about the fishing right now.
Well, Bink, I tell you what, I'm excited. You and I got to talking the other day on the phone about coming down there and doing a little cast and blast with Ridge and Colin. So I just want you to know, be careful. I'm going to be in Texas in November.
It won't be long.
That's right. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Middle Coast hotspots. Bink says inshore, trout and redfish. The surf has been hot when the wind allows. Now work the first gut on the incoming tide with top waters and work the edge of the second gut on the fallen tide with top waters and mirror lures. And then offshore, wahoos and dorados are good along the weed lines out of Matagorda on Rapala X-Raps in 200 feet of water.
You mean Bink's gonna have all 3 of the Murphy boys?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
You're going to have to pay extra for that.
Wait until the cows come home on that one. All right, let's say hi to Captain Caleb Harp in the Upper Coast region, who was able to join us at ICAST last week. It was your very first one, Caleb, so was everything what you expected, or did you have fun? Did you see anything you loved? I know you did.
Oh, yeah. No, it was a blast. I enjoyed hanging out. You know, it was a good time, seeing all the sponsors and everything. It was fun. It was a good time.
Cool.
But that was good. But, yeah, no, fishing's been good. I got flew in Saturday night and went ahead and fished Sunday morning, and we did really well. So it's all good here up on the Upper Coast. But, you know, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off and talk about the trout bite. You know, the trout bite on the Sabine jetties has been on fire lately. You know, with the calm conditions that we've had, the water's emerald green out there with over 4 foot of visibility. And, you know, using your trolling motor to go up and down the jetties, throwing parallel to the rocks is the best way to do it. Kind of like how we talked about fishing for redfish on the jetties. You know, right at first bite, the topwater bite's been really good. And then once the sun comes up, it's better to switch over to soft plastics. Mirror lure, Little Johns, and straight line truce, and Tidal Surge, split tail mullets, and chartreuse glitter have been really good. And, you know, when you're fishing soft plastics, you've got to be on the bottom. If you aren't losing jig heads, getting hung up, you aren't working it slow enough. Quarter ounce jig heads are normally fine, but if the current's really smoking, a 3/8 ounce, sometimes it's necessary to get down. And then, you know, going over to the redfish, open water schools of redfish in the whole Galveston Bay complex have been a player lately with a lack of wind. You know, there's several different schools in all corners of the bay, but, you know, generally these fish are going to congregate in areas that have shell off the Houston Ship Channel, and others will just be roaming in the middle of the bay slicking. You know, all of these schools will be slicking, though, showing themselves, enabling you to track them down. Just follow the freshest slicks ahead of the school to get right where they need to be. But, you know, big 1 ounce spoons and big swim baits rig on half, and 1 ounce jig heads are good for casting far and getting ahead of the school. It helps you get out there and chase them down. And then going offshore, being that it's finally calm and everyone can actually get out there, the offshore fishing's really good all over the place. All the nearshore stuff's doing well, but the guys taking advantage of the good weather and making a long run have been hammering the tuna at the floaters. The Boom Vang and the Nancy are two good floaters, about 110 miles out of Galveston. Diamond jigs and poppers are great lure choices, but it's also hard to beat. Method of dead bait, we call chunking. And chunking is when you cut up a bunch of menhaden and throw them over like chum while rigging a couple pieces of those menhaden on a number 4 hook. They'll be all over it. And the blackfins are generally always going to be out there in the 15 to 30 pound class. But a lot of the guys are catching more and more yellowfins too, from 50 to 90 pounds. And then, the red snapper is still everywhere. You can go out there, anything in state and federal waters and get bites. The better snapper are going to be about 30 miles out, increasing in size the further you run out. But, any kind of live or dead bait or jigs will work, being that there's so many of them. And now that the federal season is open, recreational fishermen on the weekends, like Bink was talking about, you can go wherever you want and do very well.
All right, Caleb, I got a question for you. My question is that if somebody wants to send you a picture, how do they send it to you? Where do you want them to send it?
You can send it to me through my social media. You can DM it through there, or you can email it there on my email, harp.caleb@gmail.com.
All right, good. And if they want to actually book a trip with you, they can go book the trip in the same place?
That's it, yeah, or on my website.
All right, man. Well, we got to make sure that we promote that more often. And guys, send those pictures. If you catch a really great fish, whether it's a big black drum or a redfish on the jetty, just send him a little note as to where you caught it, your name, and he'll be happy to put it on, right, Bree?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the CCA Upper Coast hotspots from Caleb's region. Inshore, trout on the Sabine jetties, trolling up and down the jetty, throwing parallel to the rocks with top waters at first light, and then soft plastics once the sun comes up. Most of the trout are 2 to 4 pounds, with a few up to 7. And then offshore, tunas on the floaters, the Boom Vang and Nansen, 110 miles out of Galveston. Poppers and chunking are going to be the best bet for those. Black fins are up to 15 to 30 pounds, and then the yellowfins, 50 to 90. Sound like sushi to me.
Sushi, gotta love sushi. Well, we know it's still summer, so don't freak out. But before you know it, the kids will be back in school. So while you begin shopping for new clothes and backpacks, why not shop for a life-changing scholarship? The CCA Texas Star Tournament has given away over $5.8 million in scholarships and is giving away $325,000 again this year. Youth ages 6 through 17 enter for free with their $10 CCA membership. So get registered and get out to claim your scholarship. CCA, the leader in marine conservation and habitat restoration. Man, time flies when you're fishing, doesn't it?
Yes,
Already.
it does.
Summer shopping.
That's right.
And gotta love CCA. Well, we've fished everywhere except one. So we're headed to the Middle Fresh region next, but we also have to check out what Dave has for us at the CCA new product.
I caught a brim. I caught a brim. Well, it looks an awful lot like a brim.
Be careful, that brim looks like it can catch you.
It will.
Yeah, it does.
It
Big brim.
It did.
We'll be back with new products. See you later.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Maverick Boat Group, makers of premium boat brands Maverick, Hughes, and Pathfinder. Rapala, catch the latest at rapala.com. Yeti, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. StarTron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
The ultimate predator has evolved again. Now, Yamaha VMAX SHO Performance is prowling the waters in 4 hungry, exciting new models. With their 4 valves per cylinder and double overhead cam fuel-injected design, these advanced 4-stroke predators are taking performance to a whole new level. Vicious, lean, efficient. VMAX SHO. The pack is growing.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about the remote controllers that Power Pole makes so that you can control your poles. So let's start off with the first one, the original. The original is a key fob. Now it's really cool. It's just a simple double click to make your poles go down. Or if you want to make them come up, we're going to just double click and they come up. If you want to stop them, you can simply just push it one time and it'll actually make it stop. Now Power Pole has also created some foot switches, and these foot switches have changed the way the bass guys and certainly the technical poling skiff guys are using them. We can mount them up on the top of our poling platform. We can have them on a casting platform or up there where we're running our trolling motor. It allows us to have more control over our whole boat. The other thing that comes to mind is the advanced dash switch. The great part about this is it actually allows you to do more things, and we're going to talk about that in next week's Power Pole Tip of the Week, how this dash system really works. Well, we're here at the CCA workbench, and new products is what we talk about every week, so we got some really good stuff.
First, we're going to start off with some of the CCA tools that you can find at Academy.
Yeah.
And the first one there is a lip gripper, and you know, with one of those things, when you get a fish up next to the boat, you just pull that down with your hand and put those jaws in his mouth, and boom, he's stuck on there. You might not be able to
pull
get
this right out of
Look at you, there you go.
Look at me go.
And it's made out of stainless steel, and it's got a 360-degree rotation, so if you let go, he can spin on it. And he's got a nice lanyard adjustment. That makes it sound like a duck or a hurt frog. And anyway, you put that around your hand, get it tight, and once you get that lips on it, the lip lock on him, he won't come off that
soft grip.
Yep. And these are the 7.5-inch aluminum pliers, the CCA pliers. They're very lightweight, the tungsten carbide cutters. I left them in there because you can't get them out unless you have a cutter of some sort. You need
have the cutter?
No,
okay.
no. 500-pound nylon braid. It'll cut. It comes with a spring operated, so they come open real easy. You can replace all the carbide blades. Really cool. Very light aluminum pliers.
Comes with a sheath.
Yep, comes with a sheath too, with the lanyard.
Good job, CCA.
CCA.
I like it.
All right, now here's a couple of products that we saw at the ICAST show. This was one of the big reveals from Live Target. That's the bait ball spinner rig. And the last day of the show, I actually took a fella from Tahiti out fishing because he had never caught a black bass, and he caught his first bass on that one right there. As you can see, it's got little teeth marks on that bottom. What's really cool about this, you got the 3 little teaser baits up here on the top, and they hang out on the top.
They hang like this, but going through the water.
Exactly, and that up there with that spinner blade, and they come up and eat this half-ounce jig head. This is actually the large. It's a half-ounce jig. They come with a 3/8 ounce and a 1/4 ounce actually. So they get really small. But
and do they sell this with replacement bodies?
I'm sure you can get the replacement bodies for it. I'm almost positive.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, they're very nice, and it worked.
I'm thinking redfish in Louisiana.
I think a redfish would love that, or a trout too. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
These are the new Sunfish swim baits, also from Live Target. I had to bring these because these are, these just things. They look real. That is nuts. That's I think the bronze bluegill right there, and then this is the natural blue pumpkin seed. But you can fish those things around docks or pilings, anywhere where you want to catch a bass, where there's a little bait fish around it. Any kind of brim or pumpkin seed brims or.
And you know what, guys need to remember that, guys, whenever you tie on something that's a jig, whether it's a bucktail or anything like this, could be a bass assassin, this, whatever, always tie it with a loop so that you get more action out of the lure. Don't forget that,
it'll bounce a little bit better on it.
All right, what else you got over there, Dave?
Well, we got this is called the Fish Bomb, and I got 2 different ones. This is extreme garlic, and the other one's Manhattan oil. And it's an attractant. You can spray it on your baits and make them more. This one actually comes with UV, so it actually adds UV to your bait or your lure or whatever you want to put it on. What's really cool about these is they're called a bomb, is because they have a little hole here on the side.
Right.
You can put a swivel on there and a weight and hit this button all the way down. If it goes locks all the way down, it just spews. So you could use it as a chum bomb.
A chum bomb.
Yeah,
so
you can
drop
lower
it down on a
lower
reef
it
or
to
something.
yeah, lower it to
What?
however you want, and that thing will
Guys.
keep spraying and spraying and spraying. It fills up with water eventually after
Good job.
after it dumps everything out.
Good job.
But you know that's this one's called Quick Slick for just that reason. You put the swivel on the top, drop it to the depth you want, and it just keeps spewing.
Good job. We'll get to that one next week.
All righty.
All right, Bree, where are we going?
So a chum bomb, is that anything like a bath bomb? In
Kind
your
of.
bath? You know what those are? The fizzy bubbly things that make you
Yeah.
smell good? Well, this one doesn't. Hey, you early risers, you're in for a treat on Lake Belton and Lake Athens, and Stephen Johnston from the Middle Fresh region is gonna tell you why. Hey, Stephen.
How y'all doing today?
Just talking about palms.
Yeah, I don't know about a fish bomb there. I might have to check that out myself. But hey, we're going to start out on Lake Athens. Had a couple good reports coming in. The fish are really showing up on any kind of topwater bait, chatterbaits, and wacky worms for the first couple of hours, and these fish are being caught out on the very ends of the docks. Once the sun comes up, gets over the top of the big pine trees, you can slide out in that 8 to 12 foot range on the little secondary points and main lake points there. Throw a deep diving crankbait in a Carolina rig with some kind of creature, bait, baby brush hog lizard on that's working real good. Once that sun, gets real high, it's putting big shade on those docks, so you can move back up on those docks and throw a light jig, a light Texas rig, or some kind of square bill, on the shady side of those docks. And also watch those docks, and if there's any poles that go down in the water, always make sure you take that wacky worm, throw that wacky worm right up against that pole, because that bass will definitely be sitting there in that shade on the poles there. Another report over on Lake Belton. The bass fishing's good, fair to good, what the guys are saying. Topwaters and spinnerbaits for the first couple hours. Once the sun starts coming up, jump on the other side of the lake over on Belton, because a lot of those big bluff walls you have over there, and you can get on the shady side, and that'll give you a couple more hours, to fish, a good topwater action there. Then once the sun gets on up, then you can take you a square bill or a 4 to 6 foot diving shad colored crankbait and get on the bluff walls and really parallel. If you got a partner with you, if two people, put both of you up on the front deck. If you got third person, just take that third person and have him throw right over that cowling of that motor. Those fish are really staying real tight. They're staying on those bluff walls, kind of in that 6 to 8, 9 foot. Had some reports of the white bass and hybrids there at Belton too. The white bass are coming on pep spoons, and the hybrids are coming on live shad. And these fish, they said they really ought to be schooled up and feeding real good. There's some days they'll be catching real good. The next couple of days it'll kind of be slow. They're saying on the south end of the lakes is the best action out in front of the dam, area there. And if you can get one of those little thunderstorms, they say, you definitely don't want to be out there in the lightning. But if you can get a little wind and get some clouds and get it stirred up a little bit, those fish are really, turning on, right before those little thunderstorms are coming in or right after.
All right, tell us
I would
about.
like to.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to talk about some bass night fishing. This is a huge deal in my region, and it's not as big in Matt's region in South, but it's real big too in Rick's up in the north. It kind of works just about all over with the full moon coming up right now. With the new moon coming, those fish will really get turned back around and get back to biting. A lot of us wait, for that end of July, August full moon, and you're really going to see a bunch of big fish start showing up. I had a night tournament over at Toledo Bend this past weekend, and in 5 fish, it took 33 pounds to win. Had one over at Rayburn, it took 27 pounds to win, so there's a lot of those big fish being caught. And a lot of times people want to fish super, super deep at night, and a lot of those fish, they're not super deep. They'll suspend out on the outside edge of those ridges, and then they'll swim up to the ridge and swim up on top of the ridge. So make sure you don't fish too deep. I like to stay in that 12 to 18 to 20 foot range. like throwing a Texas rig or a Carolina rig with a 10 or 12-inch worm, a half-ounce or a 3/4-ounce football jig, and a big crankbait. If you can get those fish really active, that big crankbait does real good. And one thing too, if Mother Nature doesn't allow you to get out on the main lakes, if you have to be up against a bank, you can put like a big black spinnerbait or big black buzzbait and get up on the banks. And if there's any docks with any lights, those fish might not be right on the lights, but they'll be right on the shady side of those lights, waiting on the bait to come across.
All right.
Hey, y'all, send us a picture in of those big fish you're going to catch this next week with this new moon coming.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the middle fresh hot spots. Lake Athens, fish around the docks first couple hours with top waters and spinner baits, then move out to the main lake points, fish crankbaits on Carolina rigs, and then you can move back to the docks later in the day because the high sun is going to push those fish up underneath the dock in the shade.
Well, everyone had a lot to say today, didn't they?
They did.
They did. Sounds like night fishing's on point.
Yeah,
early's
We're going to have to
better.
talk about that, I think.
You're going to do a night fishing segment?
Why not?
Next week we're going to talk about
Good job at the
it.
workbench tonight.
Good job, guys.
Good job.
Good job. We'll
Thank
see
you
y'all
so
next
much.
week.
Bye,
and
guys. We'll
have
see
a
you.
great time fishing this
Bye-bye.
weekend. 5 fingers to the face.